Planet Zoo has building as a major fact of it, but it can be a little tricky sometimes. And in fact, it was one of the things that kept me from building, and I just kept using blueprints for the longest time. But as I kind of learned how building works in Planet Zoo, it really became one of my favorite things. But it still could use some improvements. So today we're going to go over a few things that Frontier can do to update building in Planet Zoo to make it just a little bit more enjoyable and user friendly. Welcome to Greyhammer. I'm your host here, and we're going to be going over all these things. Please don't forget to leave a like if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe if you want to see more of it, and then comment below what ways you'd like to see them improve buildings yourself. Let's get right into it. And my slide won't move. More Flexicolor options. Um, Adding Flexicolor variants or improving textures on a lot of the base game animals is something, or base game items, is a really big thing that would be helpful. Um, I'd say updating the texture on the breeze and bricks is especially required, and making those Flexicolor so that we don't have to use the Indonesian bricks for every single brick piece. Because while I love the Indonesian bricks, um, they're uneven, or they just don't work for kind of classic brick buildings as well. You can make them work, but I wish that we had that red brick with a better texture, and breeze blocks would be have a better texture and have a Flexicolor variant, because those kind of painted cinder blocks look is very frequent in kind of low budget zoos. So it'd be really, really useful um, to make those look interesting. More Flexicolor options on a lot of the metal pieces as well would be nice. I'm trying to think of piece. A lot of the wood variants would be nice to have more Flexicolor options, especially the base Planet Zoo stuff, because a lot of those are actually pretty versatile pieces. They just don't have great versatility due to their not having Flexicolor options. But that's my what notes on that, and I think that's probably a good big chunk of what would make things significantly easier. Two, more animated pieces. We have animated pieces, and this kind of goes into barriers as well, in a way. So we've got like the animated butterflies, and then we've got, of course, the VFX, and we've got the animal gates to how you can get into an enclosure. But we don't have it on all of our doors. And I feel like it would be something that would be so cool to add. So you could actually have closed buildings that your guest can walk into, or your staff. Um, and maybe you could link it to a path or something. I'm not sure. Like if it's over a path piece, when someone goes through it, then it just opens the door on an animation. It can't be that hard to implement because you're only ever just turning it 90 degrees, like having it turn on a 90-degree angle, maybe a little bit higher, maybe like 120, and then people go through and it does like a check to see if there's any people on the path behind, so that they're opening the door for someone else basically. And then we'd have those swinging doors, which would make everything look so much more realistic. Another thing would be animated animal doors to allow animals to move into, like, for example, if you had a backstage shelter. For one, I'd like to add it to where if you put like an air conditioning unit on a building, then you would have temperature control inside as long as the building is sealed. I don't know how to calculate it, how difficult that would be for Planet Zoo to calculate and everything, but another thing would be to have like separation exhibits to where males and females could be kept separate, but then you have an animated door that actually you can open for when it's breeding time, and then you could recall the animal to its separation once they had successfully mated or had their baby. So that would be something really useful. Um, I think animations on rope pieces would be really nice as well. This is going to be a kind of a big section on it, because I think animations just would make Planet Zoo feel so much more alive. So, like, what you could do is you could have it so that if the rope piece is position snapped, the side that position snapped to something won't animate. So if you put it like, let's just say you hang it from a ceiling, then the bottom part of the rope would swing, uh, but the top part would not. So maybe you could even have it to where if it creates a long chain, it reads it almost as one piece and animates that. I'm not sure how difficult this would be, but it could be something interesting to make climbing structures way more interesting, and just kind of enhance the game quite a bit. Fixing the Gizmo tool. This is something that has frustrated me to no end. And it's when you start building off the grid and all of a sudden you select a group of things, and then when you go to move it, for some odd reason, the uh, Gizmo tool, the axes just don't line up with the group pieces. And it's so frustrating. And I'd like to see them be able to change it where maybe it does a center of just ways you can line up the Gizmo tool. Like, for example, you should have a way to where you can say, align Gizmo tool to this edge of a piece. So that, like, for example, if you're building a standoff fence, this is where it becomes really frustrating. You've got this long piece where the center of gravity has to show that the x-axis should go along the 4 meter board, but instead it's off at just the slightest bit of an angle. So something where you could say, hey, I want it to align on the Gizmo tool to align on this piece, like this edge of this piece. Other things to where moving the Gizmo tool along a piece would be nice, would help with rotation. So like, say, move to this edge of the piece. That way you could rotate it along its axis in very specific ways. It's just different things that would be useful that you can really use in like 3D modeling programs that kind of just give you more control on how you're building these buildings, and really, really would be helpful. Let me know what you think about this one. I think this is one that seriously needs some work, is improving the Gizmo tool. Um, so let's get into our fourth point, better collisions. A lot of the time, animals and building pieces have some really frustrating interactions. This is a picture I got from Reddit. First of all, great exhibit. I don't remember who I got it from, but looks incredible in my opinion. Um, Nice climbing frame, very busy looking. But sometimes animals can go through mesh. It's kind of weird. Um, don't know if it's a glitch or somehow it's, especially if like a piece intersects with the mesh, I think, or gets really close to it. Because, for example, I had my dole enclosure. Video will be coming out in that in a few weeks. But you can always check my live streams to see my Planet Zoo gameplay live. Um, and They had like a cave, and they could climb on top of the cave. But somehow, from the top of the cave, they could get to the top of the mesh, making them able to escape. It was really frustrating, and I don't know why they did it. Um, but making it so that mesh interacts with kind of animal collisions would be a lot better. Maybe it would help with some of the climbing animations as well for animals. Also, just adding, um, this is a kind of minor point to this, but it's one that's absolutely necessary. Adding more pieces to be climbable. Um, I think there's a lot of log pieces, especially the dead trees. That's more of a nature thing, but could be kind of worked into this. The like dead birch trees should be climbable. They look so good. They would look so good with animals climbing on them. I could just imagine like a wolverine going across a rocky canyon over one of those pieces or something like that. We'll probably do a better foliage video as well, but that's kind of what I want to say on that front. More wall variations. This is one that's not the biggest deal, but it's super helpful for sure. Um, and it's to add thick variations of the plaster wall pieces, so not like the off the grid pieces, because the on the grid pieces are the regular thickness of every other wall piece in Planet Zoo. Um, but the plaster and mud walls, the off the grid pieces are half the thickness of the other pieces. And this creates problems if you want to make interesting shapes to your buildings, but you used on the grid pieces and off the grid pieces, because now they don't match up. You can always double up on them, but that's really finicky, takes a bit of time to line up right, and it just never really does the work that just having them at a separate thickness. So that's something that could be improved. Also, adding thinner versions of the other walls to match the plaster and mud pieces would also be really helpful, because the thin pieces do have their really good uses. I think they work great for floors and things. You don't have as big a area, and I think smaller pieces is something Planet Zoo really needs to get better at. We've gotten a lot of small pieces from like the Conservation Pack, the Europe Pack. I think the Zookeeper Pack actually has some really good small pieces I've been using quite a bit. But we really need more small pieces, and so those thinner pieces would work well as well. Well, to where if you sunk them into the ground, it could be a thinner concrete block or something like that. So just giving us more options is always good. That's going to be it for this video. I'm recording this on Wednesday, which is the day that it's going to go out. However, normally I will be recording my videos in advance, and you can go and see them on Patreon for $1 a month. And you'll get to see them whenever I edit them up. And so normally you can see them even up to like a week early. So if you really want to see my videos faster, more recently than anyone else does, then you should go check out my Patreon. Also, next week on Wednesday, the Frontier Unlocked is happening. We are expected to get information about the Planet Zoo DLC. Hopefully a trailer. So I will not be able to cover the live stream. I'm having some friends over for a game night where we're playing Wingspan, which is a really fun board game. Y'all should give it a try. It's about creating a bird sanctuary. But I will be covering it the next morning. So I will have a video the next morning. It won't drop at 12. It will drop whenever I finish editing it, which shouldn't take too long. Depending on what it is, it could be a reaction to a trailer, or it could just be me speculating a little bit on what they have already said, taking that apart. It will either come out Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, depending on how much stuff there is for me to go over. If it's just a trailer, I can probably do a trailer reaction video Thursday morning. But if you did like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps out. Go ahead and subscribe as well if you want to see more videos on how I think improving the game will be useful and possible. And yeah, go and comment below any other things that really frustrate you with buildings that you wish I had covered. I can do a part 2 to this video, and probably would be helpful. These were the top 5 things that I feel like would be really useful for the game. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.